I'm Bruce Tuff, principal of the Tuff Law Firm. We are a full-service law firm serving the greater Woodlands area and the greater Houston area. Contact us at 281-681-0808. We're tough for you.
And now, here's the veteran voice of the legal fix, Bruce Buffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live from the Lone Star State in Montgomery County, Texas, for a brand new episode of The Legal Fix, a new age radio show presented by the Tuff Law Firm, the toughest law firm in town, with the toughest lawyers around, answering your toughest legal questions. Introducing first, hosting out of the red corner, the big deal, Bruce Colson. Tough, joined by Boy Wonder, Brandon Scott Riley, and super lawyer, G.I. Jerome, the Golden Boy, Jeremy Lee Hall.
Hey, thank you, Bruce Buffer. I appreciate that introduction. Once again, I'm the big deal, Bruce Tuff. I'm here with Boy Wonder, Brandon Riley, and the Golden Boy, Jeremy Hall. We are joined by our special guest, Ronnie Yeates, a licensed firearms manufacturer and licensed attorney. If you have a question, call our hotline at 936-900-2381. Well, today we're going to be discussing gun control, including the recent mass shootings in Uvalde, the conversation that follow, including new legislation, partisan politics, the key players, and the recent headlines. I met Ronnie. He was doing a seminar at the Montgomery County Bar Association, and he was the last speaker, and usually the last speaker can't hold the audience, but he did, and he was talking about everything about guns, the legislation, the history, concealed carry, open carry.
He had groupies after his speech.
Oh my God, yes. Everybody's on the edge of their seat. And there was a cocktail hour afterwards, and I don't know how he did it. He held us off from the bar. So it was a great, and so we thought it'd be a great idea in light of what the tragic events in Uvalde is to have Ronnie on and talk about, since he's intimately involved in these areas and knows more than anybody I know that I've talked to, he can actually clarify a lot of issues in the chatter that's going on. Later in the show, we're going to find the answers to questions. How easy is it to buy a gun? Who can sell them? And how many guns are tracked? So that's something we'd like to take. And then we'll take on hot topics like automatic weapons, extended clips, modifies, and ghost guns, mods and ghost guns. Ronnie, welcome to the Legal Fix. We're so glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm been licensed a little over 20 years. Pretty much my entire career was spent as a prosecutor until I retired in 2018. So I did that for about 17 years. Since I retired, I've been doing criminal defense work. I've done gun trust, weapons trust, and I do appeals for people who are denied the purchase of a firearm or a transfer of a Title II weapon, which is a NFA weapon, machine gun, silencers, and stuff like that. So I've been doing that for quite a while as well.
Where were you a prosecutor at?
Grimes County.
Grimes County. So, okay. And your office is located in Montgomery County?
Right downtown Conroe, right on the square.
Great, great. I thought it was pretty fascinating during the seminar that we had about the gun trusts and a lot of things I just didn't realize, but these gun trusts are a big deal. I mean, a lot of people do those, and that keeps the firearms, I guess, in the family, and they are transferred down. Is that the reason for doing that?
So the main reason they came about, the law changed a little bit a few years ago, but the main reason they came about is under federal law and state law. But federal law primarily is to have one of these, you have to apply for an application. It's a tax permit, basically. You pay a fee, and you get approved for the item. So whether it's a machine gun, silencer, short barrel rifle, one of those things. If you do it as an individual, only you can be in possession of that item. So if you're driving around, and let's say your wife drives you around and drops you off at Academy, she keeps it going somewhere, and she has a silencer or a machine gun or something in there, and you've been approved for it, she's committing a third-degree felony in Texas and a federal offense. Whoa. So the gun trust is designed to allow a spouse primarily. Other people can do it, the brother-in-law and stuff like that, if you want to let them use something hunting.
Okay.
And that way somebody else can be in possession of it other than an individual. So it's a trustee or responsible person inside that entity can be allowed to possess them.
Okay, so that's actually, it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle for maintaining and holding the firearms so that you can identify other participants or people that have access and use.
Correct.
Okay, I really didn't get I didn't get the meaning. Did you guys figure that out? You
Is
probably
there-
knew that.
Yeah, when he was saying it, it made perfect sense at that moment.
Okay.
Is
We
there
have
a
several-
limit?
Go ahead.
Is there a limit on who can be in that trust? Can it be general, just like my family members, or is there a maximum number of people that can have possession?
No. So you can add as many co-trustees or responsible persons as you want. The caveat is they all have to be non-prohibited persons.
Okay.
So they can't be a convicted felon. They can't be, convicted of assault, family violence. They can't, the litany of things when you go buy a gun that lists a prohibited person, you can't be one of those persons.
Okay.
And when you do the application for a transfer, you have, anybody who's going to be a responsible person has to be listed as well. And they have to do a bunch of paperwork to submit to the feds as well.
Okay.
So,
Okay, I'm going to jump into the hot topic right now. So, tragic events in Uvalde. I mean, just shocking, and it shocks your conscience. Those of us with kids, you just can't process it. I don't even know what those families are going through. But then the politics start piling on. Outlaw the guns, take away the AKs, just one after another. The legislation that I've heard and that is coming out is increase the age to 21 and have some waiting period for AKs. So what do you think about those two? Or is that something that you would agree with or disagree, or what would be your approach to this, knowing that you've got to find some political solution because everybody's pointing fingers, it's going to be used as a hot potato, and there's a constitutional amendment. You have a right to carry. So how do you reconcile that?
so it's a very difficult area to jump into, no matter which side you're coming at it from. And so the way you look at the legislation, a lot of the gun legislation throughout the years has been a reaction to events that have occurred. Horrible events, but it's a reaction instead of a planning in front of them. And so a lot of people will jump on the case that we need to ban these weapons. We need to increase background checks. We need to increase this law, that law. All the way to the other side, it's like, we need to make hardened targets. And so we need to make schools a harder target for people who want to do these things. No one attacks police stations because they know they're going to be met with force.
Right.
And so it's finding that common ground in there. And so the laws that are coming out, when they're trying to push out, deal with changing the age for assault weapons or assault rifles. And when you start getting into definitions of those things, an assault rifle actually, Webster's Dictionary just changed their definition in 2018 to include semi-automatic weapons that look like actual assault rifles or assault weapons. The original definition in that and Encyclopedia Britannica is basically it's a machine gun. It's a select-fire automatic weapon used for war. That's the original definition going back, decades. But it's been changed to meet more of an, I don't want to say an agenda, but it kind of meets the terms that are used nowadays through the press and other people. And so when you start looking at changing laws with specific things, especially if you want to talk about an assault rifle or an AR-15, you want to change something. Well, there's only certain definitions of firearms according to federal law. And so you have handgun and long guns. That's basically it. Then you have the NFA stuff that's kind of outliers, but you have handguns and long guns. And that's whether it's designed to be fired by one hand or it's designed to be shouldered.
Okay.
And so when you start bringing into, you're going to have to look at a completely different class of weapon now. So they're going to have to change the definition of this gun federally to say, okay, we want this specific type of weapon to be regulated differently. And so how that is effectuated, you also have to look at, okay, so 18 to 21-year-olds or 18 to 20-year-olds won't be able to purchase an AR-15, but they can go buy Dad's 30-06. They can go buy, any number, a 7mm Browning automatic. So they can buy stuff with ultimately much more firepower and are semi-auto, but they don't look mean.
That's so complicated, and I kept hearing this. There is no definition of an assault rifle, and I went, "What? Well, how could they not have a definition? Because that's all everybody talks about, outlawing assault rifles." So then, but there's not a definition. So thank you for clarifying that. So, but Ronnie, if you had to come up with a political solution that you think would work in your world, would increasing the age make a difference? Because it sounds like it doesn't even make a difference, and you can still access other long rifles or machine guns or more powerful weapons.
When you look at it, when you look at the several mass shootings going back quite a while, the huge majority of them were purchased legally. Some were stolen.
Over 75%.
Right, and they were purchased legally. And so you're going to have to start restricting a whole mass population's rights to start changing these laws. And, you know, as far as laws go, you could talk about a waiting period. I actually talked to my wife some about this morning, and she says maybe a waiting period would be something that would be good. And when you look back at the Clinton assault weapon ban, they did a waiting period that helped a little bit, but really didn't change much at all, because you can mess here and mess there and change the way the weapon's configured, and it doesn't meet the definition. So you can change a little bit here and there, and it doesn't matter. But a waiting period, maybe a short, 2 or 3 day waiting period, because according to, I'll quote some people like Everytown. Pretty much everyone knows Everytown. They're like one of the bastions out there for strengthening gun restrictions and all that stuff. Well, if you look at some of their statistics from their website, they talk about how the bulk of their stuff, the bulk of the mass shootings, so from 2009 to 2020, there was 1,363 people shot and killed in mass shootings in that long period. And they define mass shootings as 4 or more shot and killed, excluding the shooter. So using their definitions. But if you continue on their website, they say most of their mass shootings are perpetuated by people who were prohibited from having the weapon. So they weren't legally owned weapons. They were prohibited.
Right.
They were they had previously displayed some type of warning signs. So they had some type of mental issue. They had posted on social media that they're going to do something, but nothing rose to a level to say, hey, there's a future event that's going to happen. Like, somebody threatens to bomb a school. That's a little bit different than somebody's like, just talking smack. Right. And then they go on that says most of them are intermingled with domestic violence. So you're looking at this ball of cases that are they're just to themselves. And then you have some of these outlier cases that like Uvalde. No one really knows why he did what he did. You don't know. But he legally bought those guns. There were no signs there. So the only thing you could change with him would be potentially an age and maybe a waiting period.
Yeah.
And that would be it.
Right.
But who knows? He could have bought those 4 days before.
Okay.
I want to touch on that, the definition of mass shootings,
Sure.
because there's some variance there. But first, I want to start with something we can all agree on, and that's gun violence is bad. We all agree
Absolutely.
that gun violence is bad.
Absolutely.
Right? Where I think we disagree and where politicians disagree is how we reduce gun violence. And to start with defining the problem, you mentioned mass shootings, 4 or more people. That's kind of the common thread in a lot of the definitions. The Gun Violence Archive, and I think we just had a stat up on the screen from them, they're a nonprofit research group. They say there's been 251 mass shootings this year. The Congressional Research Service only notes 3 public mass shootings this year. So there's a huge disparity in the way people define what is a mass shooting.
Correct.
And there's all kinds of data out there on the internet, but I want to get to the shooters, because we've been talking about the shooter in Uvalde. And where did these shooters get their guns that are committing these crimes? You mentioned that most of them obtain their guns legally, 75%, and we had an infographic up there showing that. What type of firearms are mass shooters using? Carlos, if you can pull that back up.
So the rundowns looking through and preparing for this thing, the most of them are using AR-15 type weapons. And one of the reasons that is one of the most prolifically sold weapons out there. And so there are about 20 million AR-15 style weapons out there altogether, and they sell about 1 million a year. I've got friends of mine that own companies, and they manufacture probably 20, 30, 40,000 of these guns a year. And so it's one of the most popular weapons purchased. And that's probably one of the reasons they're used, is because this is the most sold one out there, and it's been steadily rising for years.
Page 9.
And so that's primarily what has been used. There have been some of the other ones have used handguns. Some people have used 45 Colts that had bigger magazines. Some Glock or other semi-automatic handguns have just large capacity magazines from stock. And it's kind of a misnomer to call them a high capacity magazine, because that's just the way they're designed.
Mm-hmm.
It's like calling a bus and a van two different things when it's just a transport vehicle, right? But primarily the majority of the weapons that have been used by people, no matter which description you go by, has been the long gun, the AR-15 style.
AR-15
And that's an
weapon.
assault rifle.
Right. Let's take a short
According
break.
to the new 2018 definition.
Yeah, that seems like we need uniformity in definitions, and starting there, that seems like one of the first steps. But it's time to take a short break. We'll be back to answer your tough legal questions. Call our hotline, 936-900-2381. And then we'll return, we'll start, and we'll walk through the process of buying a gun. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. I'm Bruce Tuff, principal of the Tuff Law Firm. We are a full-service law firm serving the greater Woodlands area and the greater Houston area. Contact us at 281-681-0808. We're tough for you.
To host a blood drive at your location, go to giveblood.org.
Hey, thank you. We're right back after our short break. If you have a question for Ronnie Yeates, please call our hotline at 936-900-2381. Ronnie, welcome back. Ronnie's a licensed attorney. He's a firearms dealer, and he has deep knowledge of gun laws. And we left off with you, Jeremy. You were asking Ronnie a question.
Yeah, there's a wide variation in the stats, including who are these people that are doing these mass shootings? Who are the shooters? And what are the commonalities between them? Can we learn anything from the shooters? Weapon of choice, we said, is AR. That's most of the shootings occur with that type of weapon. And this is going to be kind of like a mini hot seat. How many of these shooters commit suicide?
A bulk of them do.
Okay. Where do they occur?
Depends on the stats you're looking at. Most of them have occurred, a lot of them occurred in schools, some type of stores, just several different places. And like I said earlier, it's places that are easy targets. There's nothing there to protect it.
You quoted a stat, 61% in homes.
So every town, I was looking through some of their stuff this morning, the percentage they have is, according to their 4 or more shot and killed, excluding the shooter, says 61% of them happen in the home, and 81% are with handguns, and that's their stats.
Okay.
And so that's their stats that they use, and that's one of the biggest proponents for gun control out there.
There's schools, workplaces, church, nightclub, concerts. Mother Jones, another site that compiles stats, they say more than half the cases involve school or workplace shootings, and other locations are shopping malls, restaurants, religious and government buildings. Those are their big ones.
Yeah, so it all depends on how you qualify the definition.
Mm-hmm.
So like we said earlier, you have 250 out here, or not
3.
that many.
Yeah. Average age of a shooter, and this is from Mother Jones, was 35 years old. Youngest in the data they surveyed was 11 years old. 44 of the 45 killers were white males, and only 1 was a woman.
Yeah, the bulk are men.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy
Absolutely.
white men. Wow.
So let's transition over to buying a gun. Ronnie, how easy is it to buy a gun?
It's pretty easy.
Is it too easy?
I don't think so. So it all depends on how you're going to buy it. We can get into the gun show loophole and all that stuff, and I'm sure we will. But primarily, if someone's going to buy a gun, let's say I wanted as an individual to sell you a gun as an individual. I can just,
I give you money, you give me the gun.
that's it.
Yeah.
And that's that
That's
easy.
it.
That
Absolutely.
Easy. And is there a registration
checks.
requirement, or you say, now that I got this gun, I better register it with the police department or somewhere? Nothing
No,
like that?
there's nowhere to register it.
Okay.
And so if you buy a gun from a dealer, you go in and you fill out what's called a 4473. And there's a bunch of questions you have to fill out. It says, are you A through Z, are you convicted felon? Are you, addicted to drugs?
Sure, I'm going to put all that down when I
All
buy
those
the gun
things.
too. Yeah.
And so they'll take that form and they submit it in, and then the FBI runs a background check in all their multiple supercomputers
Wow.
up in federal land. And they'll either, most of the time, they'll give you a yes, proceed. But they can give you a denial, so something may pop up somewhere, and the dealer will deny you. Now, if nothing comes back in 3 days, a dealer can proceed with the
Sale goes through.
and it goes through. Now, there's different dealers that have their own in-house rules that say if we hit that 3-day mark, we're just going to deny you.
Yeah.
It's just CYA for them. But if you hit that 3-day mark, the dealer's okay to give them the gun.
So there's a lot of dealer discretion.
Right.
Well, there's
So-
there's a law limitation, but there is dealer discretion. It would seem to me that if I was doing this and I was dealing in guns and I was in the business of doing it and I'm responsible, I'd be very careful as to who I'm selling guns to. And if someone's whacked out and they're coming in to see me, they wouldn't get a gun. And then I would see there was liability that could be imposed on the dealer as well if they hadn't complied with all the requirements. But it doesn't seem like it's much. It
No,
doesn't seem like...
Well, it's not necessarily just the dealer. The shooter in Uvalde, the gun he used was made by Daniel Defense, and there's been lawsuits brought against the gun manufacturer now. And so a lot of these mass shootings, people have brought lawsuits against the manufacturers.
Aren't they immune from lawsuits?
No,
You can bring a lawsuit against a gun
anybody can
manufacturer.
sue anybody. It's just like I would assume.
Is a defect in the gun like a gun's a defect? Or if you have a perfectly good running car and the guy purposely drives into a crowd of people, you sue Chevrolet for the car?
That would be the logic.
Yeah,
okay.
I think one of the recent lawsuits against Daniel Defense was based on their marketing, and they recently took down a picture of an infant with a gun off of their social media pages. And the lawsuit claims that they are marketing and targeting young people with their gun ads, and that's a problem. And so they've done some remedial action, but that's the answer to, well, do you sue someone who made a car for the driver's use of it?
Yeah.
It's how are you marketing it, and is it having a harmful effect?
Okay. What are the mental health restrictions on dealers? Or what do you do? Do you conduct a mental health screening
what kind
yourself?
of screening happens?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
The dealer, you can't ask somebody at a gun shop to start asking them mental health questions.
When's the last time you seen your psychiatrist?
Anything
That's
like that.
Not even allowed.
And
Yeah.
so you can't ask those questions, just like
Right.
you can't ask them what medication they're on because of HIPAA.
Yes.
But what you look at is some of the prohibitions are, someone who was discharged from the military, unfavorably or dishonorably. You look at people who were committed to mental institutions, who were involuntarily committed for some type of mental issue dealing with a crime, different things like that. And those things that are put into boxes and put in the computer and then put in the system and theoretically sent to this cache of information out there, those things will pop up when someone goes to purchase a gun from a dealer and the feds run their supercomputers and it's supposed to see these things.
Yeah.
But, there are many, many government agencies out there that don't send stuff in. Anywhere from driver's license suspension stuff dealing with Class C tickets to very serious offenses, things just don't get sent in because, life and work and business.
Right.
And so it's a compounding of human error out there that one person doesn't do it, then it doesn't get to A to B to C to the big box,
Right.
where everyone looks at this stuff across the country.
What makes sense to me is if this wasn't his gun that he bought legally and he acquired it from someone else, that person should be held responsible. That should be a logical step. It also doesn't make sense that we increase the age to 21 when we, and I remember I was in the draft for Vietnam when I was 18. So but then I couldn't drink till I was 21. I was thinking, how fair is that? So you're going to put someone in the Army, you're going to give them a gun, and of course you're going to train them how to shoot. But I do believe a waiting period is appropriate. I think the waiting period, because the heat of passion in these things, I think that waiting period is something we should work on and look at and strengthen probably the restrictions on the purchase of the guns, and that's kind of, we're just listening to you, Ronnie. That's two of the areas that I was looking at. Are guns tracked? Can you track an ID his gun back to a dealer or to no?
So the way it works is FFL gun dealers are required to keep what's called the 4470 form. It's the background check
Right.
form. They're supposed to keep those for 20 years. No one else keeps them, just the dealer.
Whoa.
And so what happens is the ATF, when a firearm is manufactured for sale and serialized for sale, that information goes to the feds. The feds have to know who made it.
Okay.
And then there's the track forms that go from manufacturer to dealer and dealer to dealer to dealer. So all that's tracked.
Okay.
So if you're a manufacturer and you make a gun and I'm a dealer who buys it wholesale from you and then I send it to him because he's another dealer, all that's tracked. But once it's sold to somebody, the only track of that is the 4473.
I see.
Now, anything after that is fuzzy land because you don't know. I can sell it to you, you can sell it to him, he can sell it to him, and the most there may be is a bill of sale.
Yeah. Can I order a gun online with no oversight? Can I just go online and find I can't do that?
Ship one to my house?
Okay.
No,
How
you
easy?
can't.
How easy is it for you to become a gun dealer? Like, let's say I just want to be a gun dealer and I'll just get all the guns I want.
So it's not hard. It's
You can
not
do that
hard.
without being a gun dealer. You can buy unlimited guns, right?
You can buy whatever you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, a dealer, so you have to do the application to become a dealer, and you have to tell them what kind of dealer you want to be. There's manufacturers, there's pawnbrokers, there's curio and relic, so there's different type of FFLs. And you have to have a place of business, and they come out and you do the application, you do a full background check, pictures, fingerprints, everything. They come out and do a site survey to make sure you're actually wanting to conduct a business. That's the gist of the whole thing, is you actually want to do business. If you meet all the requirements, it's mandatory you get an FFL.
Okay.
So if all the boxes are checked and you meet all the parameters, you're going to get an FFL.
How many gun dealers are there in the United States?
I looked that up. In 2020 there were 130,000 licensed FFLs,
Wow.
and that's all the FFLs out there. So that's pawnbrokers, that's manufacturers, that's all of them.
That doesn't seem
It's
a
not
lot.
very many.
It doesn't seem a lot.
Out of
130,000
300
doesn't mean.
million
Here's something that's flying out. Is the Second Amendment outdated? The Constitution, is that an outdated concept now?
I don't believe so.
Why do we have the Second Amendment? What was the purpose behind it, and why is it still relevant now? Because there's a lot of chatter. It's like, hey, we don't need a Second Amendment.
It's the same reason we send guns to Ukraine. That's why we have
Well,
it.
Russia will not be invading
Yeah,
us,
and
that's for
Biden's
sure.
not going to hostile
not saying
take over
that.
the U.S.
Okay, so
Sleepy
that's,
Joe
I'm
is-
just saying. I mean,
They
that's a
wanna adjust
topic.
the
It's
US
talking
to the
about the
Northern
Second
Hemisphere.
Amendment. So what the
That's what
purpose is
Kamala
what?
Harris just said
Back in
yesterday.
She's not
back
coming
in the
after me
day,
with a gun.
we wanted
she
our
won't.
guns, and we didn't want Britain or our own government taking our guns from us.
It's not taking our guns from us. It's
Our
taking our
liberties.
other rights from us. And if you want to just break it down to a simple colloquialism that surges across the internet, is the second protects the rest.
That's right.
If you don't have the ability to protect yourself from the government, a tyrannical government, so if they come in and say, hey, you know what, we'll take care of you, we'll take all your guns, don't worry, we'll take care of it, then after that, there's nothing for you to protect yourself from an overbearing government. And that's what the Second Amendment was designed for.
And I believe in that more now because I've been dealing with the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, and the U.S. Attorney's Office. And by God, I'm glad we have that amendment because they are the most overbearing people I've ever been exposed to in my life.
And in my background, I love law enforcement, and I get grief from criminal defense attorneys sometimes and a bunch of gun friends. But the vast majority of your cops are great people, just like anybody else. Doctors, lawyers, there's some bad ones out there. Absolutely. But the biggest issue, I think, coming from the Uvalde thing is people are learning that the police, the serve and protect thing,
Oh man,
that was the political push that happened from LAPD back in the 50s and 60s. That was an advertisement.
right,
And it caught on.
right.
They don't have a duty. Just recently, there was a guy who jumped off in the water, and an officer watched him drown.
I saw that. Yes,
And they waited
I
an
saw it.
hour while
Yeah.
that kid shot up
I did.
school.
I saw
And
that.
so they don't have a duty to serve and protect. They are arms of the government, of the executive branch,
Right.
to enforce the laws.
Where were all the good guys with guns to stop the
They
bad
were
guy
trying
with
to
the
get
gun?
in. They were trying to get in, and the cops were keeping them from getting in. I mean, this thing is still evolving how it is. But let's take one more short break quick. We'll do that. We're going to come back with Ronnie. We're going to close out. We're going to do a few hot topics with Boy Wonder. We'll be right back. I'm Bruce Tuff, principal of the Tuff Law Firm. We are a full-service law firm serving the greater Woodlands area and the greater Houston area. Contact us at 281-681-0808. We're tough for you.
We all want to protect what we love. And we know that child safety seats and seatbelts save lives. Yet 3 out of 4 kids aren't buckled in correctly. And in 2016, 42% of Texas teens who died in crashes weren't wearing a seatbelt. Don't be a statistic. If you love it, click it. That includes you, too. Buckle up. Every rider, every ride.
Hey, welcome back to The Legal Fix. We're joined by Ronnie Yeates. He's a gun dealer and attorney who helps clients understand gun laws. It's actually a gun fever show that we have right now. And Ronnie, if you were testifying before Congress now, and you're the expert, what would you advise Congress on legislation changes, if any?
If there would be one thing I may suggest, would be some type of delay in taking possession of the
I
firearm.
think that's reasonable.
Some type of waiting
Yeah.
period.
How about
Yeah.
universal background checks? Gun show loophole, close it up.
So what's a gun show loophole?
Gun show loophole is you don't have to have a background check at a gun show.
You show
because
up at the
you're
gun
doing-
show, you like that gun, you buy it, and you walk out with a
NRA
bag.
says it's collectors and enthusiasts, just private deals
That's
to each
false.
other.
That's false.
There is no gun show loophole.
Okay.
So when you go to a gun show to buy a gun, all the tables there are dealers. And so you're going to have to do the same background check there. They're going to do. Most of them have laptops. If they don't, you're going to go to their office or their shop to pick it up. But you have to do a background check on any dealer there that's selling a gun. Now, there may be individuals walking around, and you could buy a gun from them without a background check. But that's not a gun show loophole. That's the same thing everywhere else. You can buy a gun from somebody, an individual.
Do more of those transactions happen at gun shows with all the
I
gun
never knew
enthusiasts
that.
there?
I didn't guys walking out with bags
that's
of
all
guns.
propaganda.
I
all
think
propaganda.
there may not necessarily more happening there, but it may be more prevalent there because it is a collection of firearms there. And so instead of, looking on, want ads or whatever, trying to find the gun you want, keep going to pawn shop after pawn shop because you're looking for this one certain gun, people go to gun shows to sell guns. And so I may have, 1950-something collector's rifle that Jim Bob wants over here, but he's not going to find that because he didn't play on the internet. But he may go to the gun show down in Brenham, and there it is. So there's a higher collection of gun enthusiasts at a gun show because that's what it is, just like a car show.
Have any of the guns in the mass shootings come from a gun show that we know of?
I don't know of any. There may have been, but I don't know of any.
But it's not necessarily discussed ever, is it?
No, because they say whether it comes from a gun dealer or an individual or whether it was stolen. That's kind of the breakdown
three
of
breakdowns.
it. And they're just going to say, John's gun shop. It doesn't mean they bought it at his shop itself. It could have been at a gun show, but the dealer himself is just John's gun shop.
So the term gun show loophole is kind of a misnomer, but the issue that we're trying to correct is buying a gun without a background check. And is that getting guns into the hands of people who we don't want to have them?
I don't think so. Because if you look at the majority of the mass shootings, it's people who have bought guns legally. So this quote-unquote gun show loophole or an individual-to-individual sale doesn't help the problem that they're trying to address.
Well, isn't that buying a gun legally if I buy it at a gun show from a fellow gun enthusiast and I don't have to undergo a background check? Whether it's at a gun show or anywhere else, if you sell me a gun and there's no oversight, regulation, or anything else, well, you selling me, you would regulate. But if we were just enthusiasts, then there's no background check requirement.
Well, as all the statistics show, almost all these mass shooters pass background checks. So changing this rule out here, individual to individual transfer, doesn't affect anything. Is what's in the hot seat right now. Is the mass shootings. It doesn't have nil effect on it.
So
it's like saying,
Isn't it true that
how do we
over
stop-
95% of all mass shooters were in a fatherless home?
I don't know that for sure.
And how do we stop mass
It's like
shootings?
26
What do
out
we
of
do with
30.
this? What do we do with? I mean, this is something that I don't know. Is this like the new normal for us, that we're just going to see mass shootings, kids getting shot in school, and it continues? I mean, it's unacceptable.
Cost of liberty, that's what the NRA says.
Oh, well, has the NRA proposed any policies changes?
Not
No?
really. No, not at all.
Gun
The-
sales go up after mass
the,
shootings.
the changes that are being proposed by gun enthusiasts are make the targets harder to attack.
That's it.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Harden the schools.
Yeah.
Have more safety measures.
You know,
Well, that means no guns in bars and restaurants and office buildings.
well,
And
you
There
take
you
a
go.
gun in the bar
6.
anyway.
Immediately after the Aurora, Colorado shooting, there was another shooting in Texas, but it ended before it began. Just a few weeks later, a man went into a theater in San Antonio area and tried to shoot it up, and an off-duty cop shot and killed him before he shot anyone.
There was a lady just
So
a few
it's-
days
Yeah,
ago.
just
The guy
days
with an
ago.
AR-15 opened the fire, and she shut him down with a handgun
She popped
right.
him. Yeah.
really?
like that.
Holy
That's
cow.
just
There
4 or
are
5 days ago.
dozens of stories like that throughout the U.S. When there's someone to shoot back, it ends quickly.
How do we
But that
stop
doesn't happen
How
very
do you
often.
stop the crazies? How do we stop
Well,
these
we see
people?
dozens
How do
of
we stop
stories of that
crazies?
every month, every year.
I don't know how we stop the crazies, but you know, it all comes down to if somebody wants to do something to somebody, they're going to find a way to do
They'll
it.
find a way. A
You know,
vehicle, a weapon,
whether
some means.
You know, 2-day waiting period, 5-day waiting period, 10-day waiting period. If they steal it from their neighbor, you know, buy it from a guy down the street who's selling hot guns. You know, if somebody wants to do it, they're going to do it.
It's like the family in Tomball, God forbid, that when they went to the ranch up in Centerville and this guy escaped
Waiting for
conflict,
him.
waiting for him.
Yeah.
Right.
It's probably their weapon
Tortured
that he
him.
accessed.
I
Oh,
think
my
one
God, it's
one thing we
horrible.
can all agree on is we need a multi-part solution. It can't just be one thing. Can't just be a waiting period.
Yes,
Can't just be
yes.
background checks. Can't just be making the places safer. Because I could say the same thing about that. Somebody's going to find a way to commit violence if they want to. And if the school's locked down and the next place is locked down, then maybe they go to a third place. We can't lock down every building in the United States.
And Beto thinks that it's taken away the AKs. So he's
The
taken
ARs,
the
yeah, the
ARs.
rant
I call
that
them
he went on.
AKs. Yeah, the ARs. Take them all away. But then you got handguns.
Because they
then
have
you got
studies showing
other long rifles. So
in both Australia and Britain, they removed the guns and violent crime went up. Period.
Really?
So there's no correlation between
Well, it's
removing
enforce the
guns
laws.
and
We have the
creating
highest-
safe spaces. I
we
know
have-
we're snowflakes now and we want safe spaces. There's no correlation between removing all guns and safety in your communities. Period.
did
I
you
think
say
they-
we're snowflakes? Are you saying we, like you, we,
universally.
you?
How do you explain the United
I'm a shiny
States
penny.
having the highest gun ownership in the world and having the highest incidence of gun violence?
We have 156 million gun owners in the United States, and you're talking about a select few group of people comparatively to the amount of people that own weapons.
But that stat says the more guns, the more gun violence.
Which stat?
But
Which one did you call?
I would
which-
like to see that stat.
The
There's an
U.S. has
entire- there's an
the
entire
highest gun
series.
ownership in the world and
Right.
the most incidence of gun violence.
Does that beat every other country?
No,
Every other country
every
by
other,
far.
Let me-
Every
let
other
me-
country in the world?
Let me
Really?
let me
What
ask you
about
some
Ukraine?
statistics separate from firearms. So if we want to talk about the dangerousness of firearms and regulating firearms more, so the National Safety Council did research on school buses, okay, which is probably one of the most highly regulated things out there because they're carrying our children, right? And so from 2010 to 2020, there were 1,252 people killed in school bus wrecks. In statistics dealing with firearms, there were a little over 1,300 killed in mass shootings about the same time period. You're about 120 people off. And this is all children, pretty much. Now you jump into that, there are 142,000 people injured in school bus accidents in that same period. So you're dealing with the most regulated thing out there, bar none, dealing with our children. And there are almost the same amount of people killed and exponentially more people injured. What do you do about that?
Wouldn't there be even more people killed if they weren't regulated so heavily? Didn't the auto industry experience a steep decline in auto accidents and deaths and injuries after seatbelt regulations, airbags, the collapsibility of cars? After the government gave that to the CDC and said this is a public safety issue, the incidence of injuries and death from auto accidents went down. So I think it would be even higher for the school buses if they weren't so heavily regulated.
We still have 5,000 car-related deaths in the state of Texas every year. You're more likely to die in Texas than you are in any war that the United States is currently occupying.
But that doesn't mean that a regulation is
car
helping.
accident, excuse me.
Regulation
Well, I think it does.
reduced.
I think you're right, Jeremy.
I
It
don't
does.
disagree that
Regulation does
regulations
help,
help.
and it helps in that specific example. It does. Hey, can we go to Hot Topics? We're going to close out.
Oh,
real
are we
quick.
out of time?
Well, we are.
We can skip the... Tom Cruise's company, I think it's Paramount Pictures, is being sued for copyright infringements. They had until sometime late 2020 or January of 2020 to complete the sequel before the licensing agreement expired with the man who wrote the original article that the movie is based on.
Yes.
They're being sued right now for an unknown amount of money for copyright infringements.
Oh,
so
man.
it's a big deal, and this has already grossed over $500 million worldwide.
Is that right?
500
It's his
million
biggest
in-
movie ever.
Oh my gosh!
Bart,
You
you
were
could
telling me that
combine them
before
all,
the
I
show,
think you
Ronnie.
see
That's
it there.
amazing. Amazing. Yes.
Jeremy, you brought up sampling once before, and I just read an article that P. Diddy still pays $2,000 a day to the police for the sampling of that song that they wrote.
Remix it from the
when he
80s.
Remixed it, yeah. So
What, Roxanne?
Decades later.
Every Breath You Take.
Every
Oh,
breath you
breath
take.
you take.
Yeah, Biggie
Ronnie,
Smalls.
you know too much.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
you're
good.
like all that.
That's
There's a whole lot of work.
It's all in his
here.
beard. He's
Pay
got it
him,
all
Diddy.
stored in his beard.
He's so
It's good music,
So-
though. Good
All
music.
right.
It is. It
All
is.
right.
Bruce, I just want to say, every single gun owner enthusiast I know is uber responsible. They're the exact type of person that I would want to have a gun if things went down. The beef that I have is these misnomers and the arguments that people who support guns make to fight gun regulation, saying it'll take away our Second Amendment right to bear arms, regulating guns. Nobody can take away our Second Amendment rights, right? It's a constitutional right,
Well,
and
you
it's been
can,
upheld by
but
the
you
Supreme
can.
Court.
But there's a damn hard process to
They-
do that. Yeah.
It's not necessarily, it's chipping away. So like I said earlier, if they want to change the definition of one firearm from a long gun or handgun to an assault rifle or an AR-15, they want to change that. Well, now they're changing definitions and affecting a small group of people. That's 18 to 20-year-olds. And so once they do that, then they can just chip away other little things. Just, it's the whole give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Why do people need those weapons? Assault rifles.
It's just a sporting rifle. That's all it is.
It's enjoyable to shoot. That's
Yeah.
the reason most people
Absolutely.
have them. Okay.
Absolutely.
Is it a hunting rifle? Do you actually use it for hunting?
A lot of people use those for hunting.
What do they hunt?
Pigs.
With it.
Pigs, deer,
Varmints.
you can shoot deer with them.
Whoa!
Absolutely.
Is there anything left after you
It's
fire?
it's a 22 caliber rifle.
Oh, it's 22 cal.
223.
Oh, man.
It's a
Okay.
22 caliber
Oh,
round.
tiny
It
little
just goes
bullet.
fast.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
That's
wow.
it.
All right. Didn't know
That's
that.
it.
Any parting thoughts for our audience, Ronnie? You want to share with us? Thank you for being on the show, though. Really,
Yeah.
you're got a wealth
Brilliant.
of information and knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all for having me. Anytime you want me out here.
All right. Well, we're going to have you back. So,
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank
Good
you.
job,
for,
Jeremy,
Hey,
on
thank
prepping.
you. Yeah, thanks for
Good job.
prepping it, guys. Thanks for watching The Legal Fix, brought to you by the Tough Law Firm. Call us at 281-681-0808 or visit toughlawfirm.net or hit us up on the comments. Catch our past episodes and highlights on our website or YouTube channel. Connect with us on Facebook and Insta and catch our new episodes that are coming out this month. Listen live on Spotify at 91.1 FM The Boss, Fridays at noon. I'm the big deal, Bruce Tuff, and I'm here with Boy Wonder Brandon Riley, Golden Boy Jeremy Hall, our special guest Ronnie Yeates. We'll see you next time on The Legal Fix.